Hi, this is Myra with Boutique Paint. I'm looking a little bit like a mad scientist today. I have pulled out the array of colors from DIY. These are their maker powders, and they come in all of these beautiful colors, including also a silver, kind of sparkly, glittery color. And we're just talking about how to use them. There's just a whole array of things that you can do with these, and they come in such beautiful colors, but you can also mix all of these to make your own colors. So we'll set some of these aside and we'll leave the ones that are open here. And I went ahead and painted this board kind of haphazardly, but just to kind of give an idea. So I just did a neutral color of faded burlap on this with DIY paint, and I've mixed up some of this beautiful gold here, which is Van Gogh, into some just plain wax. And you could go ahead and just put some of this plain wax right onto the board and use it just like that. Or you could wax your piece ahead of time. Let's go ahead and just wax one little section of this so that we can play a little bit. That way you can actually see. One of the advantages to pre-waxing before you use a colored wax is if you put it on and you're like, a little too dark, not what I'm looking for, then you can add a little bit more of the clear wax and rub it off, and the majority of it should come off. So I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow again, and we'll do it on the wax side. I'll just use my finger to rub this in. But it's great for doing highlights on a piece, or doing blending of colors. If you don't have the blending necessarily down of the paints, this is really an easy way to do some gradient coloring. So I'm just going to take a paper towel, and I see how I can take some of that off. I could take it almost completely off if I don't like it. If I do it with the wax, not the clear wax, on the board ahead of time, then you can see it's harder to come off. So I always suggest put your wax on. That way you can maybe change your mind on colors, or you can tone it down a little bit. You can make it a little bit more subtle with just a little bit of hints of the yellow in there, or whatever color you're using. So basically what I did is I just took a container and I put a little bit of the clear wax in, and this one's just about shot as far as what's in here, but let's see if we can get at least enough out of here just to mix up a color. I think I want a little bit more than that. All right, that's a good start. Now, the nice thing is if you get a couple of these containers, either from the dollar store or online or wherever, then you can put lids on it. And because it's the wax and it's the powder, it's not going to dry up if you have the lid on it. It's going to stay like this for usable for quite a while. Let's see. Let's go ahead and try the lavender. And it makes just, look at that brilliant color. It's just so pretty. And it doesn't take much of these. These aren't that big of containers, but that being said, it goes a long way. So you can do many projects off of the one container of color. So obviously I didn't mix up a whole lot there, but it's enough to give you a feel, although most of it's on the sides. You know, mix up a little bit bigger batches unless you're just experimenting with colors, like mixing different colors, or if it's, you know, the color that you're going to want to use. So once again, I'm just going to cheat and use my fingers and instead of a brush. And I'll take my paper towel and just, so that gives it just a little bit. I rubbed a lot of it off. You may want to just put it on, let it sit just for a few minutes, and then rub it down a little bit, just so the color will stay. And you can also mix it darker. You can put more pigment into there, into the wax. This is a same color that I mixed with the white wax, just DIY's white wax. And look at how beautiful that lavender is. I'm just going to dip a paintbrush in there. I mean, look how gorgeous that is with the white. Very pretty. Now, say you want a little bit of gradient. Say you want it to be a little bit darker down here on the bottom. Well, you can take whatever tool you're using to grab out a little bit of color. And you can just kind of put it down here on the bottom. And then work it in there. And that makes a really pretty, you know, transition color. And like I said, if you haven't completely got the mixing of paint colors down, of blending them like this, the wax is a little bit more forgiving. I mean, the paint is too, don't get me wrong. Because you can always spray it down with the paint and reactivate it and work it some more. But this is very pretty to just give you, you know, a darker to lighter, vice versa coloring. The other thing that you can do with these is mix it in with paint. And I'm just going to use white today. This is, I think, the Swan White. Grab another stick. I'm going to use the elixir. I'm just going to put some in and then mix it on up. And that just makes a little bit of a difference in color. That's very subtle. So the more you put in, the darker you're going to get. So I'm going to take a little bit more. And this is a great way to mix your own paint colors also. Take, you know, experiment with it. Take a little dab of paint on a white piece of paper, a little dab, and put it on a paper or white paper plate. Put a little bit of the color in, mix it in, so that if you're wanting to have more of a blue-gray, take one of the DIY gray colors, take a little bit of this, experiment on the paper plate or the piece of paper, get the color about where you want it, and then start mixing it from there in a bigger batch. But that makes a very pretty, just kind of lavender. Let's just put a little bit on the sample board. I'm going to put it where there is no, oh, I had more on the stick. Obviously that's not mixed up. So if I put a paintbrush in there, it wouldn't be doing that, but that's actually kind of a cool effect on its own. So that's kind of a pretty lavender. Let's say we're going to want it a little darker. Let's just keep adding a smidge in there. Now, if you're painting something, let me just put a little bit of this base color on there also. I could dip a paintbrush into the color, and don't do it this way. Put a little bit of that powder onto something else like a paper plate. Don't do what I'm doing here. But you could just add that to the wet paint and start brushing that in. And just say, well, it's kind of drying out a smidge. So I'm just gonna dab a little bit of water and keep going. great way to come up with your own colors. Make sure you write everything down. You always want to know what you did. Let's get all those little pieces. Let's mix this up and see what color oh, that's just a beautiful lavender. Look at that. Today's a purpley kind of day, it looks like. So you can use this to just come up with all kinds of your own colors, your own combinations, your own effects using this. I let this sit a little bit, so let's go back. This poor paper towel. I'm out of paper towels out here, so I'm trying to get away with using the same one. So see how that just leaves kind of a pretty lavender tint? So you can manipulate that and play with it and get what you're wanting. If you just want kind of some overall color, this is great. So say that you paint this whole thing a white and then you just want a very light lavender tint. You can just put a little bit of the powder or the wax on there and work it in, and you're going to get that. But you can see this is like an all over color at this point with the white wax and the color in there. So the other thing you can do with this, which I've talked about many times, anybody that's ever watched one of my casting with resin with the molds, especially around the holidays, I love using the colors. So what you can do is two things. You can just paint a little bit of a color. Let's grab the other yellow. I put the Van Gogh in the center there, and I would then take another color and maybe paint the outside of the flower. And you can mix a little bit of different colors in there. Kind of has a Scandinavian, you know, feel, the yellows and the golds with a little bit of blue. You can just mix it in there and just have fun with coming up with different color combinations for the mold. And then you can pour your amazing casting resin right into that, and you can do it because this this particular one, which is the 10-minute cure, dries white. It will have these colors in on the top of the mold then when you pull it out. The other thing you can do, and I do this quite often, is I add a little bit of the colorant into the mix itself. And I've got a couple different videos on how to be using these powders in your molds and mixing the powder into the casting resin. But it's a lot of fun because then you're just kind of painting with powders, and then you pull out this beautiful resin piece, and it's all colored for you already. So you don't have to paint then. You're ready. You're done. You could add, you know, the waxes, the dark waxes, the white waxes to it after you're done or whatnot, but it's ready to go. So with the glitter powder, and let's see, we got this one here too, which is really pretty. This is New Year's Eve. They've got kind of that glittery sheen. To use these, I'm finding that the best way to do that is to wax your piece and then take something that you can use to just kind of sprinkle. You could even take like a salt shaker and put it in, those in, and then just kind of shake it over the wax. Let me see. I'm going to, the silver lining is already open, and I'm going to just take this tool here. Let's get the purple off of it. And you can just take a little bit and just tap it over a newly waxed piece and let it sit. Don't mess with it. I mean, you could probably pat it a little bit just to kind of get it in there. Some of it will come off, but if you let it just sit on newly waxed piece, it's going to sit in there. It'll be there. There might be some movement off of that, but most of it will stay there. And the last thing I wanted to show is you can use it for stenciling. And I just put the stencil right over the top, and I just grabbed the blue. So I'm just gonna put a little bit onto this stencil pouncing foam brush. And you can just go in here and put it on. And this is going to be kind of on the light side as far as just kind of giving you a little bit. I mean, you could put a lot on there and get a stronger effect, but this is just giving kind of a lighter look. Just kind of a nice little silhouette. I'm just going to peel back the corner to show you. Now, if you wanted it a little bit more, you could use the white wax and just really get it in there. And that would give you more of a color. That gives you an idea of what you can do with the wax. And the little bit of shadowing here isn't bad, because it kind of gives you an even more of an outline for the stencil. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions about any of the products I used, you can go to our website at www.boutiquepaint.com. Bye.